I was driving through my daughter's neighborhood after a long meeting. Nothing on my mind but dinner plans until I saw Evelyn's car parked outside Matthew's gate. A silver Lexus, polished and familiar, the one that should have been sitting in our garage back home. My stomach turned. Something was wrong and I knew it. I slowed the car, killed the lights, and coasted to the curb. The house looked quiet. Too quiet. I stepped out, heart thudding, and crept toward the side window, hoping, praying it was a misunderstanding. But what I heard next shattered every illusion I had left about my marriage. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I ducked beneath the bay window, careful not to trigger the motion light near the porch. The curtains were drawn, but just barely. A sliver of space between the folds gave me a glimpse inside. The living room, Claire's couch, a glass of white wine on the coffee table half full. Evelyn's purse was sitting neatly on the armrest, the same one she told me she had misplaced last week. Voices drifted out low but sharp. Once the paperwork's in, he won't be able to touch anything. I froze. That was Matthew, my son-in-law. Cool, calculated. The same man who shook my hand after proposing to my daughter 5 years ago and called me sir with that practiced smile. And then Evelyn's voice, soft, steady, the way she always sounded when she thought she was being clever. We've waited long enough. The accounts are already separated. The lawyer just needs his signature. I didn't move. Couldn't. I felt like someone had poured cement into my chest. 25 years. Vacations. Mortgage payments. College tuition. Silent sacrifices. All of it now reduced to a strategy spoken over wine in my daughter's living room. 5 minutes earlier, I'd called Claire on a whim. Just wanted to check if you and Matthew wanted to grab dinner, I'd said. She'd laughed. Dad, I wish I'm still at the bridal fitting with Emily. But Matt's home, he's buried in depositions. Depositions. Right. Yet here they were. My wife of a quarter-century lounging like she owned the place, and my son-in-law planning my erasure like it was just another case file. I leaned closer. You're sure he won't contest? Matthew asked, taking a sip from a tumbler. If he drags this out, it gets messy. Evelyn scoffed. Charles doesn't like confrontation. He'll go quiet, then disappear into one of his little projects. He always does. The way she said my name. Cold. Like I wasn't even a person, just a variable in their plan. I backed away slowly, my hands trembling at my sides. I got into my car keys, still in the ignition from before. The air inside felt suffocating. For a moment I considered confronting them right then, kicking the door open, demanding answers. But I didn't. Instead, I drove away. Quiet. Slow. Like a man trying not to wake the ruins of his own life. But in my mind something snapped. Something old and tired cracked open, and what stepped out wasn't weakness. It was clarity. Because if they thought I was going to roll over and hand them my life, they didn't know me at all. I didn't go home right away. I didn't even drive toward the highway. Instead, I found myself parked outside a diner on West Hill Avenue, one of those old brick and chrome places where time hadn't bothered to move on. I sat there for a long while, not touching the coffee I ordered, just listening to the rain begin to tap against the windshield like fingers drumming out a countdown I didn't ask for. I wasn't angry. Not yet. What I felt was heavier, slower, like the weight of a final piece sliding into a puzzle I had been too blind or maybe too trusting to finish. This didn't start today. Not really. I thought back to the little signs. The increasing number of board meetings Evelyn claimed to have. The locked second phone she kept in the back of her closet. The way she stopped asking me how my day went. How she stopped arguing with me like she no longer saw a point in pretending she cared enough to fight. I let it all go. I chalked it up to stress. Aging. Marriage fatigue. God help me, I even thought it might be my fault. But now I saw it for what it was. A campaign, slow, deliberate, and executed with legal precision, Matthew's specialty. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Evelyn and I had 3 accounts, 2 joint, 1 personal. Her name was still listed on all of them. I clicked into the savings account. $4, $327.83. That was down nearly $15,000 from last month. No big purchases, no flagged activity. Until I checked the transfers. $5,000. Then another $6,500. Then $3,000. All moved into an LLC I didn't recognize. I copied the account number and sent it to my friend Howard, a forensic accountant I'd helped get his first contract back when I was consulting. He owed me one. Charles needed a discreet look into this business account. Possible internal siphoning. Howard got it. Give me a day. I didn't need a day. I needed a plan. So I made one. Step 1, stop being predictable. Evelyn thought I'd go silent. Retreat. Let the storm pass while I stayed busy fixing gutters and volunteering at the Veterans Center. She didn't expect me to pay attention. She certainly didn't expect me to fight smart. I left the diner and drove to a storage unit I hadn't touched in over a year. Inside was everything Evelyn had forgotten existed: boxes of my father's tools, old ledgers from my early business days, and more importantly, paper records, financial records, tax filings, property purchase agreements, things she thought were destroyed or buried under years of dust. I spent the next 4 hours cataloging every file, photographing, scanning, and organizing. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet, but when I did, it would be with facts, not feelings. When I finally got home, Evelyn wasn't there. No note, no call, just silence and the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the foyer like a bad memory. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out a yellow legal pad, and started writing names. Claire. My daughter. Innocent possibly. Naive definitely. Matthew. Son-in-law. Lawyer. Conflicted interests. Dangerous. Evelyn. Wife of 25 years. Now revealed co-conspirator. I underlined Evelyn's name. Twice. I wasn't going to blow this up, not yet. People like Evelyn and Matthew. They counted on emotion. They needed me to react so they could paint me as the unstable one when the divorce papers landed. No, this wouldn't be a reaction. This would be a correction. I called my attorney the next morning, Julia Crenshaw. Sharp, cold, unimpressed by theatrics. I didn't give her details, just asked for a meeting and told her I needed to discuss preemptive asset security. She didn't ask questions, just said Tuesday. 9 a.m. Don't be late. That night, Evelyn came home after midnight. No apology, no explanation. Just walked in, kissed me on the cheek like it was 2003 again, and disappeared upstairs. I stared at the staircase long after she vanished into the dark, not because I didn't know where she had been, but because I finally did. And for the first time in months, I smiled. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, not even because I was sad, but because my mind was alive in a way it hadn't been in years. I wasn't sitting in my old armchair anymore. I was back in my element, the strategist, the quiet planner, the man who used to run operations for billion-dollar construction firms and never let ego get in the way of leverage. Evelyn didn't know that man. She married the version of me that came after the softened one, the man who traded spreadsheets for weekend barbecue, who watered her orchids and smiled at her book club friends. She thought that was all I was now. She was wrong. By 6:30 the next morning, I had 3 folders laid out on the kitchen table, one labeled Legal, one Financial, and one Claire. The last one was the hardest, because if Claire, my only daughter, knew what was going on under her roof and chose to stay silent, that would break something in me that I'm not sure could ever be fixed. So I set a test. Nothing dramatic, just revealing. At noon, I drove to Claire's office downtown, where she was managing operations for a startup nonprofit still trying to change the world, as she liked to say. I brought lunch from her favorite Thai place. A quiet visit. No warning. She looked surprised when I showed up, but not guilty. "Dad, what are you doing here?" She laughed, standing up to hug me. "I figured I owed you some noodles after bailing on dinner." I smiled. "Busy week." She sighed. "Don't even ask. Fundraising is a nightmare. Matthew's been cranky and Mom, well, you know Mom." I tilted my head. "She's been keeping busy." Claire hesitated. "Yeah, she mentioned she had a bunch of meetings and errands lately. Same as always." I didn't flinch, just nodded and set out the food. As we ate, I watched her closely. The way she avoided eye contact when I asked about Matthew's workload. The way she shifted in her seat when I mentioned Evelyn's Lexus needing new tires. None of it was definitive, but none of it was clean either. Finally, as we were finishing up, I said it. "Claire, do you trust Matthew?" She blinked. "What kind of question is that?" "A real one." She put down her chopsticks. "Is this about last week, the conference call that ran late?" "No," I said evenly. "It's about now. Today. This house. Your marriage. Your mother." Her mouth opened, then closed. Her fingers twitched slightly against her glass. I leaned forward. You know, when people lie, they always think it's the lie that does the damage. But it's not. It's the pause, the hesitation, the moment when they calculate instead of speaking. She looked away. I don't know what you think is happening, Dad, she said quietly. But whatever it is, I'm not part of it. That was all I needed. Not confirmation, not denial, just the pause. Back home, I made a call to my attorney, Julia. I didn't give her the full story yet, just enough to get her moving. I want to separate my estate assets from anything jointly titled, I said. She paused. Are you planning on filing? Not yet, I said. But let's be ready. I don't like surprises. She chuckled. Charles, when you ask for readiness, you don't mean it. You mean precision. I'll draw up the trust revocation drafts and asset shielding proposals. You'll have them tomorrow. Good. After I hung up, I opened a locked drawer in my study and took out a small voice recorder. I'd used it years ago when I was building a case against a corrupt subcontractor, legal in my state as long as I was part of the conversation, or as in this case, if it took place in my own home. I charged it, checked the date stamps, tested the mic. That night, I let Evelyn kiss me on the cheek again when she came home. I even poured her a glass of Chardonnay and listened to her talk about some charity board dinner she'd had to sit through. I nodded, smiled, played my role. She never noticed the small black box tucked into the base of the lamp beside the bookshelf. The next day, Howard sent me a message. Howard. That LLC account you asked about registered in New Mexico under a shell corporation. Owner listed as Sable Creek Holdings, but the paper trail leads to a P.O. box tied to Matthew's legal firm. Evelyn's signature is on 2 of the withdrawal authorizations. I'd say you've got your proof. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened a new document, titled it Contingency, and I started writing. Every detail I remembered from that night outside Claire's house, every line of dialogue, every transfer date and itemized purchase, every lie. By the time Sunday rolled around, I had 2 weeks of recordings, 4 statements from accountants, a preliminary draft of asset protection from Julia, and enough circumstantial evidence to make Evelyn's carefully planned narrative look like a house of cards. But I wasn't ready to blow it up. Not yet. Because there was one more piece I needed: motive, not for Matthew. That one was obvious: money, power, and positioning. But for Evelyn, it wasn't just greed. She already had comfort. She had safety. She had me. So what made her betray it? I found the answer 2 days later, buried in a folder on the home office computer, one she assumed I never used. Inside, tucked between trip itineraries and tax documents, was a scanned letter from her late sister. I hadn't seen the name in years. Evelyn had cut her off, claiming she was manipulative and unstable. The letter was dated 3 months before the sister's death. It was short, angry, vengeful. You always hated living in Charles's shadow. Admit it. You wanted to run the firm. You hated that they trusted him more, that Mom favored him. You gave up your life to be the perfect wife, but it never made you important. You married power but never held it. You stayed small. That's on you, not him. I leaned back, breathing slow and deep. There it was. The motive wasn't love or money. It was revenge, not for something I did, but for something she never became. That night when Evelyn came home, I was sitting on the porch with 2 glasses of wine and an old photo album. She looked surprised. What's this? I smiled. A toast. 25 years. She narrowed her eyes but sat, picked up the glass, flipped open the album. There we were. Weddings, Christmases, Claire's graduation, us laughing in St. Augustine, her holding a drink poolside in Cabo, smiling. Effortless. Do you remember this one? I asked, pointing to a photo from our 10th anniversary. She nodded slowly. That was the year I gave up the offer from Denver. You said you didn't want to move. I said I didn't want to follow your dream, she replied, then caught herself. I set down my glass. Evelyn, I know. She stiffened. Know what? I looked her in the eye. Calm. Level. I know about Sable Creek Holdings. I know about the plan. I know what you said at Claire's house. Her face didn't crack, didn't flinch, just went still. I don't know what you're talking about. I smiled faintly. That's all right. You will. Evelyn didn't say a word for nearly 10 seconds. But her silence wasn't shocking. It was a calculation. The same way she used to measure dinner guests from across a table. The same pause she made when deciding whether a foundation gala was worth attending. And now she was measuring me, my tone, my words, the steadiness of my eyes, trying to decide how much I knew. Finally, she leaned back and took a sip of wine. Then she smiled. That's a pretty serious accusation to throw around, Charles. I didn't say anything that isn't true. She tilted her head. You said you knew. Knowing and suspecting aren't the same thing. I don't suspect, I said. I confirm. She gave a quiet laugh, polite and practiced. So what you've been spying on me, no. Just observing what was already in plain sight. I suppose I finally started looking with both eyes open. She reached for the photo album, flipping it shut slowly. I see. And now what is this, your big confrontation? You want me to confess? Cry apologize, no, I said. I don't want anything from you anymore. That landed. Her smile twitched. The control slipped for half a second. She looked away out toward the garden I'd built for her 10 years ago, roses climbing jasmine, 2 benches under the cedar. Did Claire tell you something? No. Then Matthew. I didn't answer. Because if Evelyn was guessing, she didn't know how much I had, and I intended to keep it that way. She stood abruptly. I'm going upstairs. By all means. She paused before turning. You can't prove anything that matters. I looked down at my wine. That's what makes this so sad. She didn't respond, just walked inside. But her posture had changed, no longer composed but tight, careful, defensive. I watched the light go on in the upstairs window and knew the war had begun. The next morning I drove to a quiet office suite outside town, one I hadn't used in years. It used to house my private contracts division. I still held the lease, mostly out of sentiment, but now it served a new purpose. Inside was Julia, my attorney, already seated at the long mahogany table with a stack of folders in front of her. She didn't smile. She never did during serious business. 3 trusts severed, she said. Asset ownership shifted into an irrevocable charitable holding. You now have full individual control over all investments, retirement accounts, and private equity. Property-wise, your name is still on the house, but if she pushes for divorce and claims it was still effectively shared, we could face arguments around equitable contribution. Not if I change the game. Julia raised an eyebrow. I want you to prepare a quiet petition for legal separation, dated 3 months prior. I'll provide emails and logs that reflect the emotional separation began then. Charles, that's aggressive. I'm not playing for balance, Julia. I'm playing for clarity. She gave a thin nod. I'll make it happen. I opened my folder. I also need your help drafting a pre-litigation demand. To whom? To Matthew. Privately. He doesn't know I'm coming. 2 days later, I walked into Matthew's law office unannounced. The receptionist gave me a strained smile. Mr. Langley isn't expecting anyone at the moment. He'll make time, I said calmly, laying down a sealed envelope. Tell him it's from Evelyn's husband. Her eyes widened slightly, but she took it. A few minutes later, I was ushered into his corner office. He stood slowly, as if unsure whether to shake my hand. I didn't offer one. Charles, he said cautiously, this is unexpected. You're right. I sat down. He followed. He was wearing one of those pale blue shirts with white cufflinks shaped like tiny gavels. His tie was perfect, his posture rehearsed. I slid the envelope toward him. He didn't touch it. What is this A reminder, I said. That I know. His face twitched just a flicker, but enough. Know what I know about the fund, about Sable Creek Holdings, about the conversations you've had with my wife in my daughter's living room. I know about the strategy, the timeline, the planned filing, the projected financial gain. He remained silent. But more than all that, I continued, I know exactly how you justify it to yourself. You think you're protecting Claire. You think you're righting some injustice, maybe even convincing yourself I'm the villain in this story. He didn't respond. Let me be clear, Matthew. I'm not here to beg. I'm not here to threaten. I'm here to let you know that I've documented everything, every transfer, every memo, every voice recording, every timestamp. If you move forward with this plan, I won't just come after Evelyn. I'll come after your license, your firm, your career. Still silence. And I'll do it quietly, legally. without raising my voice once. He finally spoke. "Are you blackmailing me?" "No," I said. "I'm promising you mercy if you choose wisely." He looked down at the envelope, then back at me. "This won't end the way you think it will." I smiled faintly. It already hasn't. That night, Evelyn didn't come home. No message, no call. Her closet had a few items missing. The toothbrush was gone, but her wedding ring was still on the tray by the sink, which told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't running, she was repositioning, and the next move would come from her. I poured myself a bourbon and went back to my study, opened a new document, Phase 2 exposure. 3 days later, Claire called. "Dad." "Hey, kiddo." Her voice trembled. "Did you talk to Matthew?" "I did." Silence. Then he told me everything. About what you said. About Mom. About the accounts. "Are you okay?" She hesitated. "I don't know. I feel like I'm drowning." "You're not." "How could they do this?" she whispered. "How could she lie like that? To me, to you, because she thought she could." She sniffled. "Did you ever love her?" I paused. "Yes," I said, "but I think I loved the version of her she wanted me to believe in." Another silence. Then quietly, "Can I come stay with you for a while?" I blinked hard. "Always." That weekend, Claire arrived with a small suitcase and swollen eyes. We didn't talk much. We just existed together. Quiet breakfasts, silent afternoons. I made her tea at night the way she used to, like when she was 12. The wounds were fresh, but there was dignity in our silence. The kind that doesn't need to scream to say, "We're still standing." On Monday, Julia called. She filed. I breathed in slowly. Grounds, irreconcilable differences, requesting spousal support, division of assets, and full financial review, and the timing. Filed today, but time-stamped as if she submitted last Thursday. I chuckled. "Trying to stay ahead of you," Julia said. "She's already behind." The court papers arrived on a Thursday morning, sealed in a cream-colored envelope like some twisted invitation to a dinner party neither of us would ever host again. I didn't open them right away. I stood in the hallway, envelope in hand, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge, the soft ticking of the grandfather clock Evelyn insisted on keeping for tradition, 25 years, and she ended it with a courier delivery. No handwritten note, no explanation, just bureaucracy, neatly filed irreconcilable differences and a request for permanent spousal support. I sat down at the kitchen table, stared at the sealed flap, and slowly tore it open. The pages were what I expected, polished, calculated. She'd had help, probably Matthew or some firm he recommended. The language was sanitized but sharp. Words like emotional abandonment and financial control jumped out at me like accusations dressed in business suits. But what caught my eye wasn't the legal jargon. It was the list of assets she believed she was entitled to. Our primary residence, the summer cabin in Grand Marais, 3 brokerage accounts, a life insurance policy I'd converted into a trust just weeks earlier. She thought she still had access, still had control. That's when I knew. She never saw it coming. I picked up the phone and called Julia. "It's here," I said. "Then we move," she replied. "Everything we drafted is ready to file. We'll submit the counterpetition tomorrow." "Are you sure about the clause regarding prior deceit?" "Include it," I said. "If she wants a fight, she'll get one with a paper trail." Julia paused. "And Claire? She's with me. She knows enough. Enough to testify. She won't have to. Evelyn will fold long before that." I hung up and looked around the kitchen. The air felt colder, as if the foundation beneath the house had shifted. Maybe it had. Maybe it always does when trust rots from the inside. Later that day, Claire came home from work early. Her eyes were tired. Her voice was brittle. "Mom called me," she said, setting her bag down. "She asked if I'd be willing to sign a letter confirming you'd been emotionally distant for over a year." I didn't respond. I waited. "I told her to go to hell," Claire whispered. Her hands trembled slightly, but there was steel beneath the sadness. She started crying, Dad. Real tears. Told me she felt cornered, that she never wanted it to get ugly, that you were forcing her hand. "She's not crying because she regrets it," I said. She's crying because the game stopped being fun. Claire nodded, but I could see the conflict behind her eyes. I don't get it. She was never like this when I was growing up. I gave a sad smile. She didn't need to be. Back then, she had everything. Control doesn't bare its teeth until it starts losing grip. That night, I sat in my study and opened the envelope Matthew had returned to me sealed, unread, untouched. I didn't need him to open it. I needed him to know it existed. That alone was the move. Still, I slid the papers out and read them again. The summary was simple acknowledgement of professional conflict evidence of unethical counsel and a sworn declaration ready to be filed with the state bar if certain behaviors continued. There was no bluff, just boundary, and I had every intention of enforcing it. The next morning I was in court. The hearing was procedural, dividing dates, assigning temporary orders, and setting expectations. But even there, Evelyn's mask cracked. She sat 3 seats away, dressed in gray posture, stiff-mouthed tight. She didn't look at me once, but her attorney did. A young man in his 30s, too confident for his experience. He leaned into every objection with theatrical precision. I said nothing, just watched. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it brief. Your Honor, I said I believe the petitioner has submitted asset claims that no longer reflect current holdings due to structural changes made before separation. We're prepared to present documentation supporting this. There was a silence. Evelyn shifted. Her lawyer asked for a recess. The judge nodded. 5 minutes. Outside the courtroom, she followed me into the hallway. Why are you doing this, Charles? She hissed under her breath. Because I finally am, I said. No more pretending. No more silent dinners. No more glass smiles for Christmas cards. You made your choice. I'm just honoring it. You're being cruel, she said. You think this is justice, but it's not. It's punishment. Justice and punishment sometimes wear the same coat, I said. Depends on who's shivering. I walked away. We didn't speak again that day. That weekend, Evelyn tried a different strategy. She called Claire again. Left a voicemail. I heard it. Sweetheart, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for things to go this far. Your father is making things harder than they need to be. He's turning you against me. He's using you. I'm still your mother. And no matter what, I love you. Claire didn't call her back. Instead, she sat beside me on the porch, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. I feel like I lost both parents in the same month, she whispered. I didn't correct her. I didn't defend myself. Sometimes pain just needs a place to sit without being told to move along. The following Monday, Julia submitted our full evidence packet to the court, 7 pages of financial restructuring emails between Evelyn and Matthew, and the private investigator's photos from outside Brianna's house. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth, documented, declared, defended. 3 days later, Evelyn's attorney called Julia and requested mediation. We agreed on one condition: all sessions would be recorded and transcribed. No backdoor promises, no deniability. The first session was cold. She didn't look at me, didn't speak unless prompted. When asked why she believed she was entitled to a life estate in the house, she simply said, "Because I gave him my best years." I said nothing. The mediator asked if she had any financial records demonstrating contributions. She shrugged. I was the wife. I kept the home. He ran the business. Julia slid forward the documentation showing 3 domestic staff hires over the last decade. Evelyn blinked, said nothing. By the 3rd session, she started to fold, not out of guilt, but exhaustion. She realized the numbers didn't lie, that the courtroom wasn't a theater, that paper trails don't forget. She finally spoke directly to me. So that's it. You're going to erase 25 years with lawyers and spreadsheets. I met her eyes. No, you erased it with choices. I'm just notarizing the truth. She didn't show up for the 4th session. Her attorney handled the rest. The final agreement came through a week later. No spousal support. Asset division weighted 80-20 in my favor. The house mine. Retirement accounts untouched. Her final request that the proceedings remain sealed. I granted that. Not for her. For Claire. She didn't need her mother dragged through public filings. She already knew the story behind the curtain. That night I stood in the quiet kitchen, poured a glass of red wine, and opened the back door. The garden was in bloom, roses still. The bench beneath the cedar empty. But the silence no longer felt like absence. It felt like air. Breathable. Mine. 2 weeks passed. No public fights. No desperate phone calls. just the quiet unraveling of a life she thought she'd already won. Then one morning the mail came. It was a cream-colored envelope, thick and unassuming. No return address. Just her name in handwriting she hadn't seen in 15 years. Evelyn paused, staring at it like it might burn her fingers. She opened it anyway. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Not typed, not formal. Just a short, slanted note written in blue ink, the kind that left a soft halo on the page. "You once wrote me a letter. Said you'd stand beside me no matter what. I kept it. Still do. This time I'm returning the favor by letting you go." There was no signature, but she knew. And she folded it so slowly it felt like holding her breath. That night she didn't call, didn't text. But her car was parked across from the house for almost an hour, engine off. Claire saw it from her window. She didn't wave. She didn't go out. And then Evelyn left. The next day Claire came by, alone. Her face looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from everything that had happened in the shadows. She stood in the kitchen, holding her phone, flipping it in her palm like she was weighing a truth. "Mom asked me to talk to you," she said quietly. I didn't move. I just sipped my coffee and waited. Claire sat down across from me, the same table we used to have breakfast at before school. She looked older now, but the way she pressed her lips together was still my little girl. She says she made a mistake. That she thought you'd already stopped loving her. I let that sit. "And what do you think I asked?" Claire hesitated. "I think she was scared," she said. "But I also think she knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't defend her mother. She didn't condemn her either, just told the truth. That was enough." There was a pause. Then she pulled something from her bag, another letter. This one was older, creased, yellowing, and torn at the top. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Evelyn's. Claire handed it to me without a word. "Charles, if we ever become strangers to each other, if the house becomes too quiet or the dinners too routine, please fight for us. Don't let me drift. Pull me back. I won't always be strong enough to ask, but I'll always want to be yours." I read it twice. I could still hear her voice in those lines. Before time, before comfort, before rot. When I looked up, Claire was watching me closely. She wrote that after I was born, she said. "I found it years ago. Never showed her I had it. But I kept it. And why now?" Because Claire said if there's any part of her that still means what she wrote, she should have remembered it before sleeping with my husband. It was the first time she'd said it out loud. I saw the tears she didn't let fall, the steel behind her words. "The daughter I raised. I'm not here to fix anything," Claire said, "but I had to know. Do you still love her?" I stared at the letter for a long time. "I did," I said. "I loved her so much I forgot to protect myself from her." Claire nodded like that made all the sense in the world. "I filed for divorce too," she said softly. "That hit me harder than I expected. She thought she was doing this behind our backs," Claire continued. "Like we wouldn't compare timelines. She forgot we both knew her too well." I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. "I'm sorry you had to see this side of both of them," I said. Claire shook her head. "No, I needed to. For years I thought Mom was the strong one, and Dan I thought he was the safe choice. And now," she looked me dead in the eye, "I think you're the one who stayed honest, even when it hurt." There was a long silence between us, a warm one. Later that evening I sat alone in the study reading both letters again. One from a wife I thought I'd known, one from a daughter who'd seen through everything. I didn't cry. I didn't burn them either. I just folded them, placed them inside a wooden box, and locked it shut. That box now sat where our wedding photo used to be. It wasn't revenge. It was inventory, a record of where we broke and who walked away whole. I remember that night with unsettling clarity, the kind of memory that sticks like a shard under the skin, refusing to work its way out. After the confrontation at Lily's house and the icy silence that followed at home, Claire seemed almost frantic to reclaim control of the narrative. She started spending more time on the phone with Travis, whispering in hushed tones that stopped abruptly whenever I walked into the room. And then one evening I overheard just enough to piece together their next move. They were planning to secure an apartment, a place that's ours, Claire had said, her voice laced with that peculiar blend of excitement and venom. Travis, ever the calculating lawyer, had already found a building downtown, one of those glossy, high-rise developments with glass balconies and concierge service. It wasn't just any apartment. It was going to be their haven, the place where once my assets were split, they'd start fresh with my money. I caught fragments of their conversation as I passed by Claire's half-closed office door. "We'll need to move fast once the papers are signed. He'll be too busy licking his wounds to notice what we're doing." Too busy licking my wounds? I wanted to laugh, but the sound that escaped my throat was something darker, closer to a growl. I wasn't the kind of man who collapsed under betrayal. I built my empire with my bare hands. I knew how to fight, just not in the way they expected. 2 days later, I followed Claire when she said she was meeting a friend for lunch. My gut told me the friend's name was Travis. Sure enough, I spotted her silver Lexus pulling into the parking garage of the new Riverside Heights building. I parked 2 blocks away, slipped on a baseball cap, and followed her at a distance. She stepped out of the car with a confidence that made me feel like I was watching a stranger. My wife of 25 years walking with a swing in her hips that I hadn't seen in years, as if betrayal had given her a second youth. From a distance, I watched her meet Travis in the lobby. He wore that smug grin, the one I used to think was just his default lawyer face. Now I saw it for what it was, a predator's smile. They greeted the realtor with the enthusiasm of a couple who had just hit the jackpot. I ducked behind a pillar as they rode the elevator up, my heart pounding but my mind razor sharp. Later I learned through my investigator Mike Rodriguez that the apartment they wanted had a price tag of nearly $2 million. Luxury 2-bedroom top-floor panoramic view of the river, Mike said with a smirk when he handed me the report. Guess who was planning to foot the bill? He didn't need to say it. I decided then and there that I wouldn't just stop them, I'd let them walk straight into a trap of their own making. Claire thought I was naive, but she had forgotten who I was before I became her husband. I grew up in a family where every penny mattered, where my father taught me that money is a tool, not a weapon, unless someone forces your hand. The day they submitted the lease application, I made a few quiet calls. A friend on the city's zoning committee owed me a favor. Another friend at the bank confirmed that Travis's credit was shaky. His student loans alone were a mountain he hadn't begun to climb. And Claire. She had no independent income, no assets in her name except the luxury items I'd bought her over the years. Their dream apartment would never be approved without a substantial guarantor, and I had already locked down every joint account. But I didn't stop there. I asked Mike to run a discreet background check on Travis's recent financial activity. What he found was almost amusing in its recklessness. Travis had maxed out 2 credit cards trying to impress Claire, taking her to high-end dinners and buying her designer bags. He was stretched thin, counting on Claire's share of my assets to bail him out. "This guy's a ticking time bomb," Mike said. "One small nudge and his entire financial world collapses." I gave that nudge. Quietly, methodically. A well-placed call to the apartment building's management, posing as a concerned financial consultant, ensured they'd take a closer look at Travis's application. By the time they ran his credit score, I had already pulled a few strings to flag one of his delinquent accounts for immediate review. When the rejection came through, it was almost poetic. Claire's face when she got the call, I'll never forget it. She stormed into our kitchen, phone in hand, her cheeks flushed with anger. "Can you believe this?" she snapped. "They denied the lease. They said Travis's credit history isn't strong enough." Can you imagine? I sipped my coffee and raised an eyebrow. "Travis's credit history. Why is that any concern of yours?" The way her mouth snapped shut told me I'd struck a nerve. She mumbled something about helping him with a legal project and stormed out, slamming the door. That night I sat in my office staring at the folder I'd compiled, printouts of Travis's debts, copies of suspicious transfers from Claire's account, a detailed timeline of every move they'd made. I knew their game now, and I had no intention of playing by their rules. But what I didn't expect was how quickly their perfect alliance would start to crack under pressure. The failed apartment deal planted the first seeds of doubt. A week later, I overheard Claire on the phone with Travis, her voice tense. "We need a backup plan," she said. "I'm not risking everything just to end up with nothing." Travis's reply was muffled, but I caught enough. "You need to calm down. We'll get what we want. Just stick to the plan." Their plan. Always their plan. It made my blood boil. The next blow came when Claire's credit card was declined at Riverside Country Club. I'd frozen our joint accounts, but she hadn't expected her lavish spending to catch up with her so soon. I watched her that evening as she fumed in silence, tapping her nails against the table. She was unraveling one small thread at a time. Meanwhile, Travis was feeling the squeeze too. My investigator reported that 3 of his clients were threatening to sue him for mishandling funds. "The guy's desperate," Mike said. "Desperation makes people sloppy." Sloppy was an understatement. Travis started calling Claire late at night, arguing about money. I could hear his voice through the thin walls of our house, raised and sharp. "You told me you had access to his accounts. What good are your tears if you can't even deliver?" I don't know when the last ounce of love I had for Claire vanished. Maybe it was the night I saw her cry over a declined credit card, as if that was the worst thing life could throw at her. Maybe it was earlier when I heard her call me the old fool in Travis's voice recording. Whatever the moment, I knew I was done. Not just done with her, but done being the quiet, trusting husband who built an empire for someone else to destroy. The day came when I decided to turn the tables. It started with a simple invitation. I asked Lily to come home for dinner. I needed her to see the truth for herself, not through my words, but through the undeniable evidence I had gathered. She sat at the table, eyes darting between Claire and me, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" she asked. Claire smiled tightly. "Nothing, dear. Your father's just having a midlife crisis." I set my phone on the table and pressed play. Claire's voice filled the room. "When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for." Lily's face drained of color. She turned to her mother, disbelief written all over her features. "Mom, what is this?" Claire stammered, reaching for explanations, but I didn't let her spin another web of lies. "This is who your mother is," I said, my voice cold but steady. "This is what she and your husband have been planning while you thought you had a family worth trusting." The silence that followed was heavier than any words I could have spoken. Lily's hands trembled as she pushed back her chair. "I can't believe this," she whispered. Claire tried to reach for her, but Lily stepped away. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice shaking. "Don't you dare." That night marked the end of whatever facade Claire had been clinging to. Travis called repeatedly, but she ignored him, retreating into the bedroom like a cornered animal. I didn't care. Let them fight. Let them destroy each other. I had bigger plans now, plans they wouldn't see coming until it was far too late. Lily didn't say a word as she stood up from the dinner table. Her fingers trembled slightly as she grabbed her coat from the back of the chair, and I watched the disbelief in her eyes slowly harden into something else. Not rage, not sadness, but clarity. That kind of clarity that only comes when a lifelong illusion shatters right in front of you. Claire followed her into the hallway, voice hushed, pleading. "Lily, sweetheart, don't go. This is all a misunderstanding. You know how your father twists things." But Lily turned slowly, and the way she looked at her mother made the whole house go still. "Don't lie to me." Her voice was low, flat, the kind of voice that doesn't rise when angry because it no longer has to. "I just heard you call him a fool. I just heard you plotting with my husband. My husband, Mom. What part of that am I supposed to misunderstand?" Claire blinked like a deer in headlights, struggling to find something to anchor herself to. But there was nothing left. Not the kitchen she once commanded like a queen. Not the daughter she used to manipulate with guilt and soft sighs. "You don't understand what your father has put me through." Claire tried again, but Lily cut her off sharper this time. "What he's put you through? Are you serious right now?" Her voice cracked just for a second. "He worked his entire life for us. For you. I remember him coming home late, covered in dust and sweat, and still sitting down to help me with school projects. I remember him fixing your car in the freezing garage when your heater broke. I remember him skipping trips with his friends because you said you didn't feel well. And this is how you repay him." Claire stepped back like she'd been slapped. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. That moment belonged to Lily. Her pain, her awakening, her fury. Travis chose that exact moment to walk through the front door completely unaware of the storm inside. He was holding a takeout bag and his briefcase, casually juggling both like he'd just returned from a coffee run. "Hey, babe," he said, voice light, oblivious. "They ran out of the red curry, so I got—" He froze mid-step when he saw Claire, then Lily, then me. The silence was suffocating. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes darting between us, sensing danger but still believing he could talk his way out of it. That's what men like him always believed. Those words could clean up whatever mess their arrogance had created. Lily turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "Tell me it's not true," she said. "Tell me you didn't conspire with my mother behind my back. Tell me this isn't real." Travis set the bag down on the hallway table slowly. "Okay, let's just breathe," he said, switching into his lawyer voice, measured, calm, rehearsed. "There's a lot of emotion flying around right now. Maybe your dad." "Don't," Lily snapped. "Do not drag my father into this. You had every opportunity to be honest with me. You didn't. You made me think you were building a future with me while you were stealing pieces of it to hand over to my mother." Travis opened his mouth, closed it, then sighed. He tried to step closer, hand outstretched. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought she was going to be left with nothing and I couldn't stand by and—" "You don't get to pretend this was about kindness," Lily cut in, eyes flashing. "This was about greed, power, and the fact that you thought I was too blind to notice." She turned to Claire. "And you thought I wouldn't figure it out, that you could play us both pretend to be the broken wife while you planned to live off the man you stabbed in the back." Claire's mouth opened and closed, her face pale now, tears finally welling in her eyes. "But I knew better. Those weren't tears of guilt. There were tears of losing control." "I was lonely," Claire whispered. "You were both always so close. I didn't know how to get through to either of you anymore." Lily just shook her head. "You didn't want a connection. You wanted control." I stood up slowly from my chair and walked into the hall. For a moment, no one said a word. Then I looked at Travis. "You need to leave." His jaw clenched. "Lily, come on." "You're going to let him leave," she said, cold as ice. "And don't come back." Travis stared at her, trying to gauge whether she meant it. But then he saw the steel in her eyes, the part of her that had always been mine, the part Claire never understood. He grabbed his coat and walked out without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. Lily turned back to Claire, her breath shaking now. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Claire reached out, but Lily stepped back. "You raised me to believe in loyalty, in integrity, and you betrayed every value you ever claimed to teach me." Claire was crying now. "I didn't mean to lose you." "You didn't lose me," Lily said quietly. "You threw me away." She left that night. She packed a small bag, told me she needed space to think, and I understood. This kind of betrayal doesn't wash off in a single conversation. It lingers. It festers. It rewrites everything you thought you knew. I didn't try to stop her. I didn't give her advice. I just walked her to the door and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't deserve any of this," I told her. "And I'm sorry you had to find out this way." She nodded, eyes glassy but resolute. "Thank you for telling me the truth." When the door closed, the house was too quiet. Claire sat at the foot of the stairs, shoulders hunched as if the weight of her decisions had finally settled in. But I didn't go to her. I didn't comfort her. That part of me was gone. She tried to talk later that night. She made tea, brought it to my study like she used to when we first got married. I didn't touch it. "Harold, please," she whispered. "I made mistakes. But I didn't mean to hurt you." I turned the pages of my book slowly. "Yes, you did. That's the part you won't admit. You meant to hurt me. You just didn't expect the cost." She stood there for a long time waiting. Then slowly she turned and left. Days passed. Travis tried calling Lily multiple times. She blocked him. Claire retreated into herself, spending long hours in the guest room with the door locked. I didn't ask questions. I didn't care. I had my lawyer draft the final paperwork. I was done waiting for apologies that would never come. And Lily. She texted me after a week. Just one sentence. "You were right, Dad. And I'm with you." I didn't cry. But my hands trembled as I stared at the screen. The betrayal had shattered our family. But in that wreckage, something new had formed: truth, loyalty, and the quiet strength of a daughter choosing justice over comfort. And that was worth everything. The courtroom wasn't large. No grand pillars or echoing ceilings. Just beige walls, worn benches, and the dry smell of paper and resentment. I sat at the plaintiff's table in a navy suit I hadn't worn since Lily's graduation. Claire walked in 5 minutes late with Travis at her side, and for a second I felt something close to pity. She looked thinner, paler. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. But then I remembered what she said by that window. When the old fool signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for. The poison came rushing back. They took their seats across from me, Travis with a briefcase and smug composure, Claire with trembling hands and a pinched expression. I didn't look at them. I didn't need to. I had already seen who they were when they thought no one was watching. Judge Harris walked in, a stern woman with reading glasses perched low on her nose. She looked over the file briefly, then adjusted her mic. We are here today to finalize divorce proceedings between Mr. Harold Jensen and Mrs. Claire Jensen. I understand there's a prenuptial agreement in place. My attorney, Mr. Feldman, stood. Calm, measured. Yes, Your Honor. Signed on April 17, 1996, witnessed and notarized. We're submitting it again today for the court record. Claire shifted uncomfortably, her eyes flicking to Travis. He didn't move. Not yet. Judge Harris nodded. And the terms of this agreement, Feldman cleared his throat. The agreement states that in the event of infidelity or financial deception by either party, the violating spouse forfeits all rights to shared assets beyond their contributions before marriage. She raised an eyebrow. Was such a violation confirmed? Yes, Your Honor, Feldman said, passing over a small folder. Inside, you'll find documentation of financial transfers from Mr. Jensen's accounts into a private trust created by Mr. Travis Cole and authorized by Mrs. Claire Jensen without Mr. Jensen's consent. Claire's breath hitched. Travis finally sat up straighter but still said nothing. Feldman continued. There are also text message records, audio recordings, and testimony of planned asset manipulation and collusion which fall under marital fraud. Claire's lips parted. Your Honor, I was under the impression that please do not interrupt counsel, the judge said flatly. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile. I kept my hands folded neatly in front of me. That was the thing about quiet men like me. We don't shout. We don't threaten. We just wait until the ground beneath you gives out. Travis finally stood. Your Honor, if I may. Please state your name for the record, she said. Travis Cole, representing myself, though I am not officially part of this marriage dissolution. I simply wish to clarify that any transactions involving my firm were made in good faith. Judge Harris turned the page in the file. Mr. Cole, are you aware you are being named as a third-party conspirator in a civil fraud claim being prepared separately by Mr. Jensen's counsel? Travis blinked. I was not aware of that. You are now. Claire's head snapped toward him. What she whispered. Travis didn't answer. Feldman continued. In addition to the prenuptial violations, we are also requesting the court to uphold the clause removing spousal support due to confirmed intent to defraud. The evidence includes a recorded conversation between Mr. Cole and Mrs. Jensen discussing a timeline to finalize the divorce file under irreconcilable differences and transfer the remaining marital property into a jointly controlled entity. I saw Claire's face crumble in real time. It wasn't anger, it was fear. Because for the first time she realized Travis had never planned to protect her. He had protected himself. The judge leaned back. Mrs. Jensen, do you deny participating in this plan? Claire looked around, at Travis, at me, then finally down at her hands. No, she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. And do you understand that this admission renders the prenuptial agreement enforceable in full, including the forfeiture of spousal support and joint assets? She nodded, silent. Judge Harris made a note. So ordered. The prenuptial agreement is hereby upheld. Mrs. Jensen forfeits claim to marital property, including the primary residence retirement accounts and pension. She will retain her savings and possessions before marriage. There will be no alimony. Furthermore, all legal fees associated with this case will be covered by Mrs. Jensen and Mr. Cole, jointly pending the outcome of the fraud case. Travis stood abruptly. Your Honor, I'd like to file a motion. Sit down, she said firmly. You are not a licensed attorney in this proceeding, and you're lucky I haven't sanctioned you for your role in this. He sat. Claire turned to me slowly, eyes wet. Harold, please. We were married for 25 years. You loved me once. I did, I said calmly. And you used that love like a weapon. You made a mockery of it. She looked down again, her shoulders folding inward like someone preparing for winter without shelter. The judge gave us a moment, then tapped her gavel. Court adjourned. I stood, adjusted my sleeves, and walked out without looking back. Outside the courthouse, the air was crisp. My breath came out in clouds. Lily was waiting for me at the bench just past the steps. She stood when she saw me, and without a word pulled me into a long, silent hug. I didn't cry, but something cracked inside. Not pain, not relief, just release. She looked up at me. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said. "Not happy, not sad, just finally free." She nodded. "You did the right thing." "So did you," I replied. We got in the car, drove in silence for a while. Then Lily said, "She called me last night, before the hearing." I glanced at her. What did she say? That I was picking sides. I didn't understand everything. That she was only doing what she had to do. "And what did you say I told her? You don't destroy a man just because you're bored?" I chuckled. "That sounds like something your mother would have said when she was young." "Yeah," Lily said. "But the difference is..." She stopped meaning it. At home, the house felt different. Not because anything had changed, but because it finally belonged to me again. My things, my silence, my space. I opened the study and sat in the chair I hadn't touched in weeks. I looked at the framed photo of us at Niagara Falls from 2003 and set it face down in the drawer. That chapter was over. A letter came the next week from Claire's attorney, something about mediation and potential settlements for the fraud case. I handed it to Feldman and never opened it. Travis sent a formal apology via email. I deleted it before finishing the first line. Some things don't deserve closure. Some betrayals speak for themselves. The fraud lawsuit moved ahead without resistance. Claire never showed up for the deposition. Travis tried to offer a financial settlement, but it was too little too late. I didn't want the money. I wanted the truth documented. I wanted the public record to reflect what I already knew. I gave my life to a woman who chose deception over dignity, and to a man who thought his charm was smarter than justice. In the end, they lost more than I did. Claire moved into a one-bedroom apartment on the east side. Travis changed firms and quietly dropped off social media. Lily and I talk weekly now. Sometimes she came by for dinner. Sometimes we just sat on the porch and didn't say much. And that was enough. The court didn't just return my house, my accounts, my name. It gave me back my peace. People keep asking if I feel vindicated. They say things like, "Must be nice, huh?" or "Bet you sleep better now." I nod politely. But the truth is, this was never about revenge. Not really. Revenge implies fire, explosions, a final scene with a punchline. What I felt was more like frost. Quiet, unforgiving, slow. You don't spend 20 years building a life with someone just to tear it down with fireworks. No. When it ends like that, it's not fire, it's winter. And the only way through winter is forward. The morning after the court ruling, I woke up early. Not because I had to. There were no hearings, no lawyers to call. Just sunlight creeping in through the kitchen blinds and the gentle hum of a house that finally belonged to me. The silence was different now. Not the kind that haunts you, but the kind that hugs you gently. Like the house itself was relieved. Like the walls had exhaled. I made coffee, sat on the porch with the paper I didn't read. Lily called at 9. She always called at 9 now. It was our little ritual. "Morning, Dad. Morning, Lil." She paused. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. "Feels like I've been holding my breath for years and I didn't even realize it." She was quiet for a moment. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "I don't want to talk," I said. "I want to do. Do what live." She laughed. I like that answer. That afternoon I packed up the garage, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to clear space. Old camping gear we never used, a cracked snowblower, boxes labeled Christmas that hadn't been opened since Lily left for college. I didn't throw everything away, just the things that felt like dead weight, the ghosts of a version of me that no longer existed. I found Claire's old gardening tools still neatly hung in the back. For a second I almost left them untouched, out of sentiment or habit. But then I remembered her words drifting through that open window like smoke. "When the old fool finally signs the papers." I wrapped the shears in an old towel and set them in a donation bin. 2 days later, Lily dropped by. She brought groceries even though I told her not to. Dad, when you were my age, you were raising a child, paying a mortgage, and fixing the plumbing on your own. Let me do one thing. I let her. We made grilled cheese in the kitchen, sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the oaks. She asked if I was going to date again. I almost laughed out loud. Date, I repeated. What would I even talk about? She shrugged. I don't know. You're still kind, still smart, still my dad. I'm also still the guy whose wife slept with his son-in-law, I said with a crooked smile. She flinched, then chuckled awkwardly. Okay, point taken. We didn't talk about Claire again that night. A week later, I got a letter from Travis's attorney, a mutual release of liability they wanted me to sign. Buried beneath the legalese was an offer settlement money if I dropped the fraud case. $180,000 to be exact. I didn't even hesitate. I circled no in black ink, bold and clean, because money was never the point. What I wanted was to be remembered correctly. Not as a bitter old man, not as the idiot who got played, but as someone who didn't stay silent when betrayal knocked. Someone who didn't look away when justice had to be served. That's what I told Lily when she saw the letter on the counter. She read it twice. You're walking away from that kind of money. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm walking towards something else. Like what myself? She didn't answer. She just hugged me tight and warm like she used to when she was little. In late May, I got a postcard from Niagara Falls. No return address, no handwriting on the back. Just a photo of the same spot where Claire and I had taken a picture 2 decades ago. I stared at it for a full minute before dropping it in the trash. I wouldn't let nostalgia pull me back into the shadows. In June, I joined a local woodworking class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time or permission for. The instructor, a guy named Marvin in his 60s, was missing 3 fingers and had the driest sense of humor I'd ever met. He reminded me that building something with your hands has a way of rebuilding your spirit too. Every Tuesday and Thursday I showed up, made furniture, listened to old rock music in the background. Didn't talk much, but I didn't have to. The sawdust did most of the healing. Around the same time, Lily helped me set up an email account that wasn't tied to our old shared family domain. You need a fresh start, she said. She wasn't wrong. I got a new phone number, updated my address with the DMV, even changed the welcome mat at the front door. Little things. But they mattered, because every one of them said the same quiet truth. This house belongs to Harold Jensen now, not Claire, not Travis, not the ghosts of what-ifs, just me. One evening in July, Lily and I took a walk down by the lake. She brought lemonade. I brought 2 sandwiches wrapped in wax paper like old times. We sat on a bench and watched the water turn orange. Do you ever miss her? She asked softly. I thought for a long time. I missed the version of her that never really existed, the one I thought I had. Lily nodded slowly. I know what you mean. She could have told the truth. I added, even if it hurts, even if it meant we ended. But she didn't. No, I said. She chose silence. Schemes. Alexis at someone else's gate. Lily reached for my hand. You didn't deserve that. Neither did you. She smiled faintly. I'm proud of you, you know. I looked out at the lake. I'm proud of you, too. We didn't talk for the rest of the walk back. Didn't need to. Some silences are filled with peace. 2 days ago, I got a message on the answering machine, Claire's voice hesitant and small. Harold, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I was weak. And selfish, and stupid. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. I played it once, then deleted it. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not something you give to erase the past. It's something you do to free your future. I forgave her, but I never replied. Today, as I finish telling this story, I'm sitting in the same kitchen where we used to laugh over pancakes, where birthdays were sung, arguments whispered, and 1,000 invisible threads of family wove themselves around the table. But now I sit here alone, and for the first time in a long time, I don't feel lonely. I feel whole. Not because justice was served, not because I won, but because I walked through the fire, the frost, the silence, and didn't become what they tried to turn me into. I didn't burn. I didn't shatter. I rebuilt. And if you're still listening, if you've made it this far, I hope you remember this. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who do the most damage. But they're not the ones who get to define us. Not in the end. We do that. Every choice, every boundary, every time we say, "This ends with me. My name is Harold Jensen. And this wasn't revenge. It was a beginning." Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story meant something to you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where are you listening from. And if you've ever walked away from something broken, I hope you found the strength to rebuild too.